Hi guys, this is Mr. S speaking, and today I have an Oberstufe special for you guys, and we will be talking about argumentative writing, which is one of the most common tasks that you will be faced with in Oberstufe. Argumentative writing basically means weighing the pros and cons of a topic. And in order to arrive at an informed opinion on a controversial issue, we must consider both sides of an argument. So what we do is we weigh the pros and cons until we can formulate a balanced assessment of a given topic. Well, the first thing is always to organize your ideas, and a very popular technique to do this is brainstorming. And what you do is, on a blank piece of paper, you collect all the ideas that you have, and never mind the order in which you write them down. Just write them down. You should not censor yourself. Every thought matters, and you can still discard your ideas later on. And sometimes it's a good idea to visualize your ideas, like so. And at the end of this process, you can cross out those ideas that you think are less convincing. All right, let's get into it. Just for the sake of this video, I am suggesting a sample topic, namely, should students have to wear school uniforms? School uniforms are very common in the English-speaking world, and I think they're becoming more popular in Germany too. And here's a short list of pros or advantages of school uniforms. First of all, and I think that was the original idea when they were introduced, is that the student uniforms break down class barriers. If everybody wears the same clothes, you are unable to tell whether the kids come from a wealthy background or from a poor family. And they can help to increase student focus because, obviously, kids are not so much concerned with their outfits, but rather the school lessons. And they do promote a sense of community because these uniforms often have the school's logo, and it creates a sense of belonging together. And here's a short list of disadvantages. Now, these student uniforms can be expensive, and teenagers grow up. Sometimes the clothes do not fit them anymore, and the parents have to buy a new set of school uniforms that can be very pricey. And as we all know, expressing yourself is very important to a teenager, and if they cannot do this via their clothes, that's certainly a disadvantage. Uniforms can be sexist. All right, now we are ready to write our introduction, which will be the very first chunk of the finished product. And the purpose of the introduction is to outline what you are going to write about. So say what your text is about. And if it's a good introduction, it will certainly make the reader interested in what you have to say. It will make the reader keep reading. And a little tip, don't just copy the wording of the assignment, but rather say it in your own words. Okay. An introduction might go something like this. At some schools, one of the most controversially debated issues is the school uniforms. Students are required to wear a hoodie or a t-shirt with the school's logo at all times. Some students are not very fond of the school uniform. This leads to frequent debates and fights with the teachers. Why do schools advocate the concept of school uniforms? In the following, some of the advantages and disadvantages of school uniforms shall be discussed. Okay, if you say this is a very standard introduction, a rather bland one, you are correct. This is an industrial standard introduction, if you like, but that's because I have very limited space on this slide. But I think you get the idea. You outline what you want to say, and you raise a question, and you can also explain how you want to proceed. This is what I'm doing in the last sentence. And the following, some of the advantages and disadvantages of school uniforms shall be discussed. Okay, now the introduction is ready, it's finished, and it's time now to write the first proper paragraph. And as you shall see in a moment, that paragraph writing pretty much follows the same rules as essay writing on the whole. And what you do is, when you write an argumentative essay, you dedicate one paragraph to each of your ideas or arguments. In this instance, it's the student uniforms being expensive. And here's a very commonly made mistake. People sometimes mix arguments in one paragraph. So if you write a paragraph about the student uniforms being expensive, do not talk about them being sexist or being handsome or whatever. Just stick with this one idea that the student uniforms are expensive. Now we craft a topic sentence. The topic sentence is the most important sentence in your paragraph. It describes the central idea that will be dealt with in your paragraph. Here's an example. Buying several sets of school clothing each year can be very expensive. It's a very simple but also a very concise and very precise sentence. In the next step, we're going to support our argument with examples, like so. For example, 2 hoodies and a t-shirt can amount to more than 100 euros. Over the course of 8 years, a family will have to spend more than 1,000 euros for one child. If 2 or more children attend the same school, the family will have to spend 2,000 to 3,000 euros on top of the school fees. This is also called substantiation. We are corroborating the idea, the original idea of the school clothing being expensive, and we give examples. Once we've done that, we are going to write a concluding sentence to wrap up our paragraph. Many families are not able financially to spend so much money on school uniforms. You can also use a connective like all in all, as we have seen, to sum up, and this will nicely tie your paragraph together. And there you go. This is a standard paragraph that explains how school clothing can be very expensive. Step 4, rinse and repeat. Now we do the same thing for all of our arguments, the pros and the cons. We craft topic sentences for each of those ideas. We corroborate and substantiate those ideas with examples. And we write concluding sentences for each of those paragraphs. Okay, there is no essay without a proper conclusion. What is the function of the conclusion? It briefly sums up what you have examined in your essay. For example, as we have seen, there are quite a few reasons for and against wearing school uniforms. That sentence in itself is not very precise. It's rather vague, so we must look into the details. What you do is you review the arguments that you have discussed. On the one hand, they are expensive and do not allow the students to express themselves via their fashion choices. On the other hand, school clothing blurs the social differences between students. What is more, it's an important tool to create a feeling of identity and belonging to a school community. And the very last thing we do is we round up our conclusion by offering our own personal evaluation. All in all, in my opinion, these advantages outweigh the disadvantages, which is why I support the concept of school uniforms. Sometimes people make the mistake of giving their own personal opinion along the way as they craft their paragraphs. You shouldn't do that. You should stick with the scientific data, so to speak, with the raw data when you craft your paragraphs. And it's only at the end, in the conclusion, that you are allowed to give your own personal view on the subject matter. Step 6, edit and revise. What you see here is the bulk of a paragraph, and it looks a bit strange with all those gaps, and that is because some very interesting and some very helpful words are missing. For example, connectives that allow us to put our arguments in order. First of all, second of all, what is more, and so on and so forth. You can also use connectives that contrast your ideas. So remember, we are weighing the pros and cons. That's contrast. And connectives help us to strengthen this contrast. You can use adjectives and adverbs to make your text spicier and colorful. That's the green stuff. And I think now the text looks much more appealing and it is more useful, certainly. Okay, here's a little summary, a visualization of what I've been talking about. Let's take a look at the essay structure in itself. So, as you know, there is the introduction first, and there's the main part. Those are the paragraphs that we talked about, and there's the conclusion. Now, if you look at a paragraph, you will find that the structure of the paragraph is very much the same structure as the whole essay. You have an introduction, a main part, and conclusion. It's just that we don't call it that. We call it topic sentence, support, substantiation, examples, and the concluding sentence. But the structure is exactly the same. So when you write a paragraph, you are basically writing a mini or a micro essay. And I think understanding this structure is the first step to becoming a master essay writer. And I certainly hope that I was able to help you and assist you with your writing endeavors. And so get out there and try writing your first full essay. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. And see you for the next Oberstufe special. Bye-bye.